Hey guys, welcome back to another Saturday morning Meta Money here with BitBoy on the BitBoy Crypto channel. New set. Who dis?
I don't know. Who is it?
Well, it's just you and me today. Brian's on
Welcome to Beards and Bitcoin.
Hey, that's a throwback. If you guys remember that, make sure that you smash that like.
That's right. A show for the man's man and the ladies who love him.
We could never figure out who those ladies were and who they loved, but maybe that was the demise.
Well, it's not our, we don't need to be worried about who people love. You can love whoever you want to love.
Love is love.
Love is love.
At this point, love is love. All right, let's talk about society's effect of the metaverse and what it's going to bring. I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time talking about it. It's a huge tragedy that just happened in Texas. But I think that a lot of it has to do, and if you look back at maybe the way social media designed, maybe the way the internet was designed, we didn't really think about other generations other than what we were trying to build right at that point.
Yeah.
Right? So the internet is probably not functioning as it was designed in some regard.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that when you look at Facebook single-handedly destroyed privacy for generations. And really Web3 and a decentralized social media, decentralized internet, these things can help pick up the pieces to restore privacy for future generations. But like my kids' privacy, like they're 6, 8, and 10, it's already destroyed, because of how tightly Facebook and other data analytics services, how tight the reins are on my information, so they also get my kids' information.
Right.
So I think this is a great point. It was set up to fail, where data is a commodity and where it is one of the most valuable things you can have right now.
Data is the new oil. Attention is the new oil. All of that.
That's what they say. But let me ask you this. Can you make your car drive with data? You still need oil, I tell you what.
Hey, and especially if you're driving a muscle car, heck yeah.
So, but the point is, it wasn't thought through, like you said. Right. They weren't projecting what this was going to become. We were still arguing over, will people shop online or not? Like what kinds of things will the internet be used for down the road? We were too concerned about getting it working. And I think we have the opportunity with Web3 and with blockchain, because it takes a long time to develop on blockchain, we can be more methodical about the way that we set these systems up.
Right, and it's going to be very important too, because not only are we setting these systems up, but we have to not only worry about privacy, but you have to worry about the interaction that people, and obviously younger users and people with mental instabilities, because we're seeing things play out in the world that probably a lot of data would have to go into it to really figure it out. But we're seeing some people act in a way that they're just living out a video game. They're living out what they're doing on the internet in real life, and it's not working out. And it's unfortunately causing a lot of tragedy, a lot of heartache, a lot of issues with society right now. And I think with the metaverse specifically, we've got a chance to really write that into the code, and not the ones and zeros code, but really the DNA of what the metaverse and what Web 3.0 is going to be, and make it sustainable for society as we move forward, so that we're not, ruining attention spans. I think TikTok, as great as it is and as fun as it is, has destroyed attention spans.
Absolutely.
If you got 5 seconds, and that's if you don't hook somebody right off the get-go, right off the rip with your TikTok, someone's just swiping up.
What were we talking about?
I like what you did there.
Yeah, I think you're right. The attention spans are going to continue to go down further and further. But I think what we really have to do here is take a look at, because the popular talking point always when you have a tragedy like this is, it's the gun laws, or the accessibility to guns, or it's the mental problems that people have, people's mental health. But people had mental health problems 50 years ago, and we didn't really have the continuous amount of these types of events.
But do you think it's because of social media? Do you think it's in there, it's in the light, it's in the news, you're living this every single day? I don't know, what the statistics are of screen time, but you get that little report once a week that says your screen time's up or down this week, and this is what you've been looking at. This is how much time you spend in social media. I think that social media probably has created some of these issues.
I think that really when you look at it, so I look back at Columbine. When Columbine occurred, I was in high school when that happened. that was the first major, school tragedy that I know of, at least. I know there was like Kent University, I think, maybe in the 70s, but that was a high school. And we saw it play out in real time on CNN. Right. And you're watching somebody jumping out of broken glass, trying to get away. You're looking at people stumbling around. Like, you're seeing the aftermath of what happened. And it was so engaging. Like, you were engrossed in what you were watching, and you couldn't look away.
Right.
Because it was still actively unfolding. And I don't know if we had anything really to that point. I think that would have been in 97 or 98.
Somewhere in that.
Late 90s is when that happened. But those two guys, like, I think it was like Eric Klebold and Dylan Harris, maybe. Like,
I think it's Dylan Klebold, whatever. Anyway.
Whatever it is, right. Trenchcoat Mafia, remember when that was a thing? And they became rock stars because of the media coverage.
Crazy, right?
Yes.
And then I think that's the whole poisoning the well kind
That's
of.
the linchpin.
Has to be.
Yeah. And they made a movie about it, they blamed Marilyn Manson for it. They of course now they died, they shot themselves. So they didn't get to like kind of enjoy that attention. Like think about the Tiger King, right?
Yeah.
Seen Tiger King. This guy, I'm not saying he's a school shooter or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, we've seen through that documentary and afterwards, he loves the attention and the news coverage that he's getting. He's like, well, I'm in jail, but I'm finally famous, Yeah. And he loves it. People love that when they get their 15 minutes of fame. And sometimes it doesn't matter how they do it. And so that was the linchpin when people really started getting interested. Mm-hmm. When people started seeing this as like, oh, it's not just I could inflict harm. I could go out as, in their mind, a legend. I could go out as notorious. They'll talk about me like they talked about gangsters or famous serial killers or whatever it is. And some people, they get off on that. And social media now, the 24/7 ability to engage in that kind of content has amplified that 100-fold. And so you have one aspect of it, which is there has to be some connection between the amount of coverage this stuff gets and these kids making these decisions.
Right.
People have always been violent.
Always.
The thing that's changed since this has been, happening more and more and more frequently every year is the coverage, because we didn't have 24/7 news back in the 80s, right?
You didn't have trending, social media.
Yes.
What's trending right now?
So these people are not just looking at hurting people, they're looking to do it and get the attention. Then you also have the other aspect of it, which is some of these people are driven because of the depression and the bullying that they face. I'm not saying it's excused. I'm not saying that's what happened in Texas. I don't know. It sounds like that's just a mental disorder. But, we don't know what pushes people. The guys at Combine that were bullied relentlessly and stuff like that. Well, when we were kids, if you got bullied, you handled it on the bus or it was at school. You went home and you were in a safe place.
Yeah.
There is no safe place for kids today.
And that's the thing,
And that's the heart of this conversation.
Absolutely. And and this is different. This is not crypto related. This is, as someone who's prominent in the blockchain space and kind of building the business of blockchain and the ecosystem that we're trying to develop here. I mean, I just think because we've got a voice, because we have a platform, it's important to talk about, because I don't know who else is, but it's important. I think it is. Now when you talk about it, if you want to scale it back a little bit, you talk about education. If kids are going to the school, if they're attending class and going to school in the metaverse, like a lot of this goes away, and we know that. But I don't think the goal is to never fully transform 100% into online metaverse schooling. But I
don't want the movie WALL-E?
No, I don't know. I mean, I have a 7-month-old daughter, and this scares the crap out of me.
I tell you, when I read the tweet, I was at my kindergartner's graduation, and I was just in there thinking, like, man, there's a family out there that's missing their child right now, and here we are celebrating how lucky.
Yeah.
Wow. I know it's very rare that does happen in the overall scheme of the people in the country, but it does happen, and it could be you. You never know, and It's just like you got to hold your kids close, and this stuff makes you think for sure.
So what are some ways you think, like, as as we develop this Web 3.0 world and kind of ingraining some of this new social media functionality and aspect into it, what are things that can be done to safeguard the generations moving forward? Because again, I don't think that what we use the internet for now was what it was intended. Obviously, things are always changed. You have to react and adapt. Michael Tyson said, "Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth."
You said Michael Tyson?
Mike Tyson.
I've never heard him called Michael Tyson.
Well, I'm sure his parents called him Michael Tyson. When he was in trouble.
Serious conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the thing about it is, you're right. I have that quote up in my office. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And I think that on these moments where you feel sucker punched by something that happens in the world, you look at what you're doing and how, maybe in some small way you can help, or that you can play some role in fixing something systemic, really. And I think that when it comes to the internet, I say it all the time, people say crypto is the wild, wild west. The internet is still in the wild, wild west stages. Absolutely. I really believe that 100%. When the internet's much more advanced 200 years from now, that's when it'll be fully adult, final form, whatever. We're still at the very beginning of this. We're still trying to figure these things out, and we made a lot of mistakes early on. I think that what we have to do is think about one basic question. How do we protect kids? And I'm not talking about, yes, physically in the case with the elementary school or school shootings, but also digitally, how do we protect kids? Because the internet right now is so open and free that kids can find anything on the internet, things that can scar them for their life. They can uncover just by, Googling around and accidentally clicking something that leads them somewhere. And I think we've got to figure out a way to tie age and identity to our devices, so that way we can limit, systemically, what a 13-year-old kid is able to look at in the country of the United States of America.
Oh, anywhere in the world, right?
Right. Well, we're talking about, regulation would have to be for America, I would think, but blockchain solves that. It can do that for the world, correct?
Yeah.
So how do we protect kids from being bullied? How do we make it to where you can't have these anonymous accounts that aren't tied to anything that can inflict harm, but not have any accountability to what happens afterwards, right? I think about a story that happened, I believe, in Virginia many years ago, where a guy, these kids kept running over these trash cans in his neighborhood. He said, "I'm going to fix it." He poured concrete in one of his trash cans. And you know what happened? Kids crashed into it and died.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah. The unintended consequences of trying to protect and do something right sometimes can be bad. And we have to think about, how do we protect kids but still keep things decentralized so people have choice, but yet there still is a limitation within those choices that makes sense on a societal level that we can all agree. I don't think anyone would think 12-year-olds should be looking at porn. Right. So I think there's some very common sense that is country, world, consensus, whatever we can come to. And that is what kind of runs the access with blockchain in a decentralized web and a metaverse, especially. Think about a metaverse. There's a lot of adult stuff, I'm sure, going to be happening on a lot of these metaverses. Yeah. And we have to think about ways to protect kids. We want to protect all people, but really, you want to protect kids because they're the next generation.
They're vulnerable.
They're the most vulnerable. They're most susceptible. And I think the question you always have to keep in mind when you're looking at technology and you're trying to develop these things is to think about, you tend to look at the ways it can be used for good, but you got to also look and say, okay, but how can something transparent and open still be used for bad?
Right.
How can it be used for evil? And I think that's something that we have to look at. And it's not an easy road trying to figure out how to map all this together, but I think together, collectively, we can come up with common sense rules that make sense.
No, I think that's the most important thing. And hey, if you're watching, drop a comment down below with what you think probably some of the structure and protocols that need to be written into this. And let's start the conversation, because without a conversation, we have no basis.
Yep.
Right? Absolutely. So, all right, guys, make sure that you smash the like on this video. Don't forget to hop on over to the Meta Money channel and follow us, because we talk about Metaverse. I know that this was a kind of a heavy topic, a little different, right? Not crypto related, but blockchain related, and kind of the future and where we're going. So we hope you enjoyed it. Again, drop your comments down below what you think, and we will see you next week for some more Saturday Morning Meta Money here on the BitBoy channel.